Let's talk about lighting. So how do you get lighting that looks like this? Hello, I am Leif from Anything Cameras, the channel that focuses on helping you improve your filming and photography. Today, I'm going to be talking all about lighting and how to get a really good, simple light setup. So the most basic lighting setup for video is called 3-point lighting. It requires only 3 lights and it is super simple to set up. We have 3 main lights and I'm going to run through their function and my suggestion for how bright they should be and what modifiers to the light you should use. I'm going to start out with the most important, and that's the key light. I have a key light right here. As you can see, if I turn this off, I'm plunged into darkness. Most of my face does not have much light, but if I turn it back on, boom, a lot of light, really bright. It brings my face back into the video really nicely. So what I'm using right now is a 105 watt bulb in a softbox with a grid on the front of the softbox so that it directs the light and hits me pretty hard. Now this is a softbox, so it's not going to be a super hard light, but that grid does help it become a little bit harder and a little more intense when it hits my face. So we are using a budget setup here, and if you want to know more about how to set up a budget light system, then we'll have a video coming out and it'll be in the cards up here. So as I said, pretty hard light coming off of my key light. That's personal preference. I just like that. And I have it kind of at a like 30 degrees off of the camera right now. So it's kind of direct on my face. So it would leave this side of my face in shadow if I turned off my fill light. Okay, now you can see it's a little more of a spooky scene. I got this hard light hitting my face, not directly, but close to directly. So you see, I kind of have this triangle of light on my cheek here, and this side of my face is disappearing into shadow. So before I continue, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any more content. So now it's kind of have a dramatic effect for those spooky scenes in your videos, but for YouTube, we generally do not want a look like this. So I simply have a fill light. So now, this fill light fills in the shadows that this key light leaves. But there's a trick here. You do not want a ton of fill. You want it to just lighten up the face, but you don't want it to completely erase all shadow. So I'm using the same 105 watt bulb, but I'm putting a diffuser in front of it instead of a grid. So it's a much softer, more diffused light, and it hits my face much softer, and it leaves some of the shadows on my face to give my face a little more definition. So if you have a little fill light and a big key light, you're gonna have more shadow on your face and giving you more towards that spooky look until you have no fill and a lot of key. But then if you kind of even the two out to where you have the same amount of each, it's a really TV look. It'll look like your standard news broadcast where everything is completely washed out and there are no shadows. So I like somewhere in between where my fill is just a little bit darker and a little more diffused than my key light. Now if your bulbs are the same wattage, what you can do to make one less bright is just move the light stand back and less light will hit you. Okay, now let's move on to the third light in this setup. The last light is the least important, but it can really add something to the scene. It's the backlight, or the hair light. Now this just gives a little bit of separation to a person's head. So if I turn off my hair light, you can see that I lose a little definition. I lose that light halo around my hair that's separating me from the background. And I kind of blend in a bit more with much less separation. Now I understand in this scene, the background will automatically have separation because it's using a whole different color of light to light it up. As you can see, it's blue here and orange over there. And since that's not spilling onto me, there is some separation. But to make sure that there's plenty of separation, I simply add back in my hair light and bingo, I all of a sudden have much more separation between me and the background. You might not think that a scene has a hair light, but a lot of the time it does, and it just adds that extra pop to the image. All right, so now I'm gonna go through one by one and show you just one light at a time and what that looks like. So I'm gonna start off with the least important light, and that is the hair light. So I'm gonna turn off everything else. Okay, as you can see, with just a hair light, the lighting is absolutely horrible. You cannot see my face. I'm a complete shadow. This is what's called silhouette lighting. If you want to just get a silhouette of somebody, you blast a really bright light from directly behind them or close to directly behind them and have the camera in front of them. And this allows for that really spooky look in a way. They use it, this is often used in dramas or in crime shows where they don't want to show the person's face. So now let's move to the second most important light in the scene. And this will be our fill light. So if we turn off the hair light and then we plug in our fill light. So now you can see it looks better than just the hair light, but it still doesn't look great. I'm completely side lit. This side of my face is in darkness. This side is not. Now understand there's some reflection off this wall over here, which is white, which is illuminating this side of my face a little bit. But you can see this side of my face is really hot. This is really cold. And this can give some dramatic effects, but generally not advised for a YouTube video. If you make the lighting really dramatic in a YouTube video, it just turns people off. They don't really like it if the content isn't as dramatic as the lighting. So just keep it to what your video is about. So talking head, pretty basic lighting, 3-point. Make it look realistic. So now I'm gonna take this one, my fill light away, and I'm just gonna have my key light. Okay, here's just a key light. Also, very dramatic. There's a bit of a pattern here. You see, with only one light, it tends to look a little more dramatic and surreal. And that's because when we're outside, in reality, we are very well lit by the sun, especially on a cloudy day, pretty even lighting. So when we just blast part of the face with a lot of light, it doesn't look natural. And so, yes, for certain circumstances, this would look great and it would add a ton of mood to your video. For the most part, you want to stick with a basic 3-point lighting with your key, your fill, and your hair light. And now to add a little more depth to this scene, I'm gonna turn back on my accent lights. So now you might be thinking, oh, I have to buy 3 lights. Well, no, you can get decent 1-light setups. And we do have a video on how to get pretty good 1-light setups in another video for both photo and video. So that's about it for a 3-point lighting setup. It's your most basic, it's one of the best looking light setups, and it'll get you through the most situations. And as you can see, adding or subtracting lights gives you different moods and emotions through the video and separation from your background.